First, let's define what a program is, and then secondly, let's talk about why that program works. A program is a string of training sessions done consecutively, one after another, for a certain amount of time in order to produce a specific result. The reason why that program worked is because it helped manage your stress. For example, if you did not get the result you wanted, let's say it's a 12-week cycle culminating in a new 1 rep max. If you did not get that new 1 rep max, you have to ask why. Sometimes it's a user error, usually is. But if it's not a user error, then we have to look at the program. What did the program not do? Well, it didn't produce the result, but why? Again, the program is supposed to manage your stress in such a way that it produces the result. So there's 2 major ways that it can fail at managing your stress. One, the most obvious, it did not give you enough stress. If your training program is not physically stressing your body enough in order to disrupt equilibrium, then your body has no reason to adapt. In other words, your body has no reason to get stronger. Just as common, on the other end of the spectrum, the program can mismanage fatigue by giving you too much stress. I'd say that this is probably the most common for guys who are beyond their novice years of lifting and now they're advancing intermediates or early advanced lifters who don't have a coach. They go on to bodybuilding.com or something like that, T-Nation, and they find a really cool looking 10 to 16 week cycle. It looks promising. You know, it hits all the right notes. It's got all the right lifts in there, and they do it. But then at the end of that cycle, they can't perform. They're not getting that new PR. Or maybe they're not getting the 10 to 20 pound PR the program promised. Maybe they're only getting a 2.5 pound or 5 pound PR. This is an example of too much stress. It mismanaged your stress by putting you into such a high fatigue state that it suppressed your performance. All programming is, from the coach's point of view, the coach's job is to manage fatigue in order for you, the lifter, to express performance. In other words, if your fatigue is at a critical level, your performance will be suppressed. That's why after you fail that 1 rep max and say your coach puts you on a 1 to 2 week deload, you feel much stronger. And it's not because you magically got stronger, it's because there was enough time for that fatigue to dissipate, thus allowing you to express that performance adaptation. In other words, the job of a good program or of a good programmer, a good coach, is to manage your recovery and your stress. Anytime that you find a program online, let's say it's 12 weeks, and you do it to the T, you follow all the percentages, you follow all the sets, all the reps, and then let's say week 8, you're feeling totally beat up. Things that shouldn't feel that heavy are feeling heavy. Bar speed is really suffering. This is a great indicator. Really slow bar speed. All these things that are true indicators of a high state of fatigue for a lifter. If you start experiencing that, it's probably a good idea to not follow the block of training that you're on to the T. You need to look at yourself honestly. Is my bar speed slower than it normally is? Do these weights that normally feel like moderately heavy weights feel like super fucking heavy grinders? And if that's the case, you need to tone it down a little bit. The first place to cut things out is in your training volume or your training frequency. I would save cutting down intensity last. But let's say you're on the 9th week, you're sore all the time, bar speed is suffering, maybe even your form is kind of crappy just because you're so sore all the time. Try to keep the weight the same that the program calls for, but maybe only do 2 out of 4 of the training sessions. Or if you're going to do all 4, then cut out some of the sets, cut down some of the volume that way. This may seem counterintuitive. This may seem cowardly. This may seem like you're not following through and finishing what you set out to finish. You have to remember that you're following a template that you found on the internet. You found a one-size-fits-all, looks pretty good program. You handle stress differently than other people do. The program doesn't take into account how much sleep you're getting, how much food you're eating, what your job is like, what your relationship is like, all the different types of stress we encounter outside of the gym, which has a huge impact on our performance and our ability to recover. So it does you no good to train through a day or a week where you're experiencing a really high level of fatigue. You're not going to perform as well. You might miss reps. You might even injure yourself. And then you're going to put yourself in a much deeper recovery deficit, leading to the next week being twice as shitty, leading to your eventual 1 rep max day being a complete waste of time. Had you gone back in time and played it smart and upped your recovery and allowed that fatigue to dissipate, get that bar speed back, allow that soreness to die down. And mind you, being really sore all the time is not a good indicator that your program is serving you well. You don't need to leave the gym feeling beat to shit in order to know that you had a productive workout. In fact, it's usually quite the opposite. For example, I had a 5x5 on squat program today, a 5x3 on deadlift, several sets of safety squat bar squats, high rep, and some general ab work and lower back work. I got done with my squats and my lower back was feeling so unusually fatigued and inflamed. I knew it was time to call it quits. I walk out of the gym, I walk out of a workout maybe once or twice a year. And it's when I'm listening to my body. The weight on the bar when I was squatting was not heavy for me. However, it was moving really unusually slow. Indicator number 1. When I was done, my back was really, really fucking inflamed and I was looking at a 5 set of 3 with deadlifts. Indicator number 2. How am I going to feel after I do these deadlifts? Am I going to want to train really hard tomorrow if I do this? Or I can say, fuck it, recover better, get more sleep than I did the night before, didn't sleep very well, and I can have a much more productive workout that way. I can put more effort into my sets tomorrow if I recover better. I can have better form if I'm not all beat up and feeling jacked up with soreness everywhere, right? Thus, I'll have a better training effect because I'll be able to finish all my sets, use the weight I'm supposed to use, put more effort into things, have to rest less because I'm not as wiped out from the really hard week I had before. So unless you have a coach that's monitoring your training and they're looking at your sets, whether that's in-person or online coaching where they're having you send form check videos in, you have to monitor yourself. And remember, those indicators are: A, is my bar speed slowing down when it shouldn't be? B, are weights that are normally not very heavy feeling heavy? C, am I sore to the bone everywhere? D, am I sleeping enough and eating enough to meet my recovery requirements for these workouts? If you can answer yes to one or more of these questions, you're probably not recovering enough. You're in a much higher state of fatigue than is productive. You're going to squash your performance. And if you keep it up, you're not going to set those new PRs that you want to set. If you don't trust yourself to answer these questions honestly And if you're going to stubbornly bulldoze your way through a workout when you feel like garbage and perpetuate this cycle of under recovery, then you should probably hire a coach who knows what he's doing. Make sure that they understand the essential nature of programming, which again is just a matter of balancing fatigue and your performance. Managing your stress versus recovery. We need enough stress to form an adaptation. However, we need to keep stress down as much as possible without it becoming so excessive that you drown in your own fatigue.